Welcome back, my fellow subscribers. Today we're talking about the new Sony a7 IV. So if you watch YouTube, which I assume you do because you're on it right now, you know the Sony a7 IV dropped yesterday or earlier this week. Some people have had it earlier. We were used to Sony releasing something new every single year. There was always something new to replace the previous version, and now we're finally seeing a little bit more spacing out because they've caught up in their technology and they're slowing down a little bit. And so we expected the a7 IV probably later last year or earlier this year. But the thing is, they've been slowly increasing that gap of when they're releasing new stuff. We didn't see an a7S III for a long time. Very comfortable where they are right now because they have options for all budget levels. You can get a previous version a7 II, a7 III, a7 R3s. Like, you can get all of these now, pre-owned, pretty decent price compared to the new ones. And there's an entry level for everyone. So Sony's in a good place right now. So a7 IV comes into play now. Like everything, there's pros and cons to every camera. If you're familiar with camera gear, photo, video, whatever your work is, you know it is a pain in the booty. It's a headache to go through all the options we have in terms of lenses, lighting, cameras. All these companies are fighting for your attention. But if you've been paying attention, you'll see Canon and Sony are head to head right now, and we've got pretty good offerings from everyone. And I'd say Canon and Sony are at the top, in my opinion. Now, when you're thinking about a new camera gear, there's a lot that goes into play. It's not just the price. It's not just those initial features that are like to show off, to attract you. You have to kind of go back, remember, what are your needs? What are your uses? What do you have now? You know, what do you need to grow? So there's a lot that goes into it. So I want to talk about 5 reasons you should not get it. And yes, no, I don't have the camera. Like everyone else, I've been watching all these videos, reading the specs, going on the website, seeing all this stuff, all this information that's being thrown at our faces right now to show you that the a7 IV is what you're missing, what you need, what's going to make everything better. Just like many experienced photographers or videographers, you got to think about it. Don't jump right away. So let me share you 5 thoughts, not to discourage you to buy it or not. I don't really care if you buy it or not. More of like a reflection of whether I would get it or not. So first, there's always going to be a new camera. We are in a consumer society. There's always going to be something new, something better, bigger, more expensive. But at what point do you need to look back at the work you do or the work you want to do and think about, is the gear you currently have satisfying those needs? Is your video work being satisfied with the gear that you're using? Or is there a gap, basically? And this is something you got to think about with any purchase. Is it actually going to make you better? Or is it just one of those gimmicks that has extra features and everything, but you're still going to be stuck doing the same thing you're doing? You know what I mean? So in my case, I have 2 camera bodies, and it's taken me a long time to get to these camera bodies, buying, selling, upgrading, all that nonsense. I finally hit a sweet spot where I have an a7 III, an a7R III, and when I see a new purchase, I'm comparing what that looks like, what that offers versus what I'm getting out of what I have now. And that's how you should approach it. So based on what I have, a7 III, which is really relevant, it's the previous version, for me, it's a no based on this. Number 2, megapixel count. For a long time, we've been in this battle of more megapixels is better, less megapixels sucks. The real world is you can print a huge freaking print with a 12 megapixel camera, as those of you that have the a7S have seen. 24, even better. 42, okay, you can crop a little, that's a benefit. 60 or wherever we're at on the a7 IV, now we're talking ridiculous cropping capabilities. So overall, The jump from 24 to 32 or 33, whatever the new megapixel count is, it is a significant jump, but I would say it's not significant enough based on what I have. Again, previous version A7 III. I also have an A7R4, which of course there's no reason for me to want more megapixels if I already have something like that. But say I only had the A7 III, I don't think I would go for it even then, because 24 is still enough. It gives me enough crop. And again, this is from perspective of just having what I have now. Now, if you have no camera, then all in, go for it, because 33 is a sweet spot between 24 and 42, where those two extremes. So 33 megapixels is going to be a sweet spot. And if it's your first camera or your only camera, it's going to be the do-it-all, basically. But you have to keep in mind, what do you have now, or what are you missing? That way you can make that decision. Next, video. So almost every single camera out right now is a hybrid camera. You can do photo and video equally the same, getting very good results, great quality. All the frame rates that you could want are out there now. Tons of options for picture profiles. It's kind of hard not to find a camera that can do both. So when it comes to the A7 IV, of course, this is also a hybrid camera. Yes, we've got 422, 10-bit, 4K 60p. And yes, these are all great features, but it's really going to come down to what are your needs? What is the production style that you're working on? How much editing do you do? 10-bit at 422 gives you a lot of freedom when you're doing color correction and editing in post-production. But keep in mind, what are you producing? Are you working with those type of files, with those type of needs? Cine S-Log or whatever they're calling it now, all these options. If you're doing talking heads kind of like I am, my settings are dialed in. I don't really need to play too much with it. I'm kind of set my settings. I know when I'm editing, what comes out of my settings. There's not too much more than that I need. But if you're someone who's out in the field, different lighting conditions, where you are needing that ability to edit color with more flexibility, then of course this is going to be one of those options that's going to put you close to the A7S III with more megapixels. So it's really going to be like a competition between choosing an all-arounder camera versus the A7S III that's designed just focused on video. Keep in mind there are many people out there producing high-quality videos with great content using cameras that may not even be the previous generation of the Sony. They might be using DSLRs, they might be using older Canons or previous versions of Sony, Nikon, and Canon, not necessarily the A7 IV. So even without those new features that we're seeing available to everyone, people are still producing great content with great image quality. So always keep that in mind. It depends on your production. If your production doesn't require that, you can still produce something amazing. And don't forget, it's not just about your gear, it's the content. So that's always something to work on. My fourth point, this is something I wish I had learned earlier, and it took me a long time to learn because I've always been attracted to that new stuff, to new cameras. They're very attractive. They know how to get you. Don't fall into the confusion of thinking a new camera or these new extra features are gonna dramatically increase your potential. Always remember, investing in glass is more important because the glass is what your camera uses to see, what your camera is going to use for the depth of field ability you'll have, the focal point, the perspective that you're sharing through your camera is going to be through the lens. So that difference in price of going for something not as new in this moment in time can give you the ability to put more money towards that lens or to buy the lens now. Keep that in mind whenever something new comes out. If you already have something that works for you, that extra money can go towards a lens that could dramatically change the way you produce. Finally, the last point, autofocus. This is a hard one to justify with any new camera, in my opinion. We're at a point where almost every single camera coming out right now, either Sony, Nikon, or Canon, excellent autofocus. Very difficult to deny it. So whenever there's something new coming in from now on, it's a challenge to justify that upgrade. Because yes, we've got real-time autofocus, but again, that already came out. A7C, A7R4, all of these have the real-time focus. A couple of the crop sensors, 6600, 6400. It doesn't necessarily need to be this camera. The A7, S3, they all have real-time AF. So the upgrade is not that substantial. The autofocus has already been amazing for the last 2 years at least. So it's not something you should worry about anymore, or as much as we used to in the past when Sony was in their initial versions of these cameras. So in conclusion, as someone who does not have the A7 IV, but has comparable cameras with similar features from the previous generations, I could tell you that focus on what you're producing, what your needs are, and you'll kind of figure out whether you should upgrade or not. In my case, I'm getting the product I'm looking for out of what I have now, and it's taken a while to get here, but we now have offerings from Sony that aren't necessarily the newest that can get the job done. A7 III, A7R3 that's recording me, or something pocket size like this. This has real-time AF. You gotta make your decision, be smart, or else you'll be stuck in the upgrading and selling and confusion world that our photography and video world is made up of. I hope you enjoyed this video. Stick around for more.